Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Battle Through the Heavens Part 254 based on novel. So let's start. Warm sunlight came pouring down from the sky like a waterfall. Under the warm sunlight, the deathly aura that permeated the place had also quickly disappeared. Lei Ying and the rest finally sighed in relief after the surrounding deathly aura had completely vanished. They lifted their eyes and looked around. Currently, they were still in the burial mountain range. However, no life had remained in the current mountain range. Clearly, all life had been eroded by the deathly aura from earlier. A black mass of experts from the Han clan stood in the sky a short distance from the Alliance. Their eyes revealed a ferocious glow as they stared at the Alliance army. However, the expressions of some of the upper echelons amongst them were quite ugly. Clearly, they did not expect that this so-called ultimate killing formation was actually unable to cause much harm to the Alliance army. What happened? Why has the Death World been destroyed with such ease? The expression of the Nihility devouring flame quickly became gloomy. He looked at Han Yuantian's group and demanded furiously. Han Yuantian's group could only smile bitterly in the face of the anger of the Nihility devouring flame. The greyish dark-faced elder hesitated for a moment before replying honestly. Han Yuantian's deathly silence gate had been snatched by Xiao Yan. Currently, the formation isn't complete. Moreover, that Xiao Yan had used the strength of the deathly silence gate to protect the Alliance army. The Alliance army subsequently combined their attacks and forcefully break the area guarded by Han Yuantian. Bastard! Such an important thing has actually been stolen? What is the point of keeping you around? A fierce glint immediately flashed across the Nihility devouring flame's eyes when he heard this. His eyes were dense as he stared at Han Yuantian. After which, he slammed his hand violently and the space crumbled. A black flame palm landed on Han Yuantian's body with lightning-like speed, causing the already injured Han Yuantian to have a weary aura. He clenched his teeth and could only quietly accept the attack. The position of the Nihility devouring flame in the Han clan was basically comparable to Han Qiandi. Without his existence, it would have been impossible for the Han clan to last until now. Nihility, sir, it is pointless to be angry now. The Alliance army has not suffered much of a loss. On the other hand, we have exhausted the life force within our bodies. It is impossible for us to use the formation again. The greyish dark-faced elder could only sigh after seeing this scene. Finally, he opened his mouth and pursued. Although Han Yuantian had committed an extremely foolish mistake, he was also a veteran of the Han clan. Killing him at this moment would be a big loss to the Han clan. The Nihility devouring flame had a dark and gloomy expression. He glanced at the Alliance army in the distance. Although the Alliance had suffered some losses in the Death World, it was clearly not extremely serious. Their fighting strength was still extremely strong. Let's withdraw for today. Nihility, do it. An icy cold voice suddenly resounded beside the ears of the experts from the Han clan while the latter were quiet. Their bodies ended up shuddering. This voice belonged to Han Qiandi. Humph! The Nihility devouring flame snorted coldly upon hearing this. He once again glared ruthlessly at the pale-looking Han Yuantian. However, he did not disobey Han Qiandi's orders. He inhaled a deep breath of air and his body suddenly began to swell wildly. A torrent of black flames surged out from within his body in all directions. In the blink of an eye, it had already swept throughout the entire world. The lush green forest of the burial mountain range below had been turned into ashes in an instant. Even the mountain rocks were turned into dust. The caution of the Alliance army surged after seeing this action of the Nihility devouring flame. Xiao Yan's expression was grave as he rose into the air. Little Yi appeared ferocious as it stood on his shoulder. The pink purifying demonic lotus flame spread over the sky and turned into a huge fire curtain which surrounded the Alliance army. With Xiao Yan's current spiritual strength, he was able to easily unleash the strength of the purifying demonic lotus flame to its fullest extent. Roar! The Nihility devouring flame's icy cold eyes looked at Xiao Yan. A low beast-like roar was emitted from his throat. Immediately, His body, which had swelled to 1,000 feet, suddenly exploded. Bang! The sudden explosion caused the entire place to shake violently. Black flames covered the sky. The black flames seemed to have begun to gather at an extremely frightening speed at the spot where the nihility devouring flame had exploded. Within a short moment, a swiftly rotating black flame hole had appeared in the sky at that spot. The many experts from the Hun clan seemed to have received an order when they saw the black hole being formed. All of them rushed forward without a word being spoken. After which, they shot into the black hole. They are about to flee. The expressions of Lei Ying and the others changed upon seeing this scene. Many experts quickly rose into the air. Powerful Do Chi shot out one after another without a need for any orders. Finally, they smashed towards the black hole from all directions. Humph! Faced with the sudden fierce attack from the many experts of the Alliance army, a cold snort was suddenly emitted from the nihility devouring flame within the black hole. Immediately, black flame erupted like a volcano, surging out and colliding directly with the many attacks. After which, a devouring power erupted and wildly swallowed the many attacks. Trying to leave? It won't be so easy. Xiao Yan clearly found his target. He laughed coldly as the seals formed by his hands changed. A 10,000 feet body slowly appeared. The yellow spring divine anger that was unleashed by his D-state soul had a strength that was even more terrifying than his extermination fire lotus. This was an extremely pressurizing attack against those experts whose spiritual strength was inferior to him. The damage of one soul was not something that one could recover from simply resting. The moment the figure appeared, an earth-shaking spiritual attack shot out at a shocking speed. Even the devouring power of the black flames had been forcefully shattered under this spiritual assault. The spiritual attack ruthlessly smashed onto the black hole. Immediately, the bodies of at least 100 experts from the Hun clan exploded and turned into a bloody fog, which scattered within the black hole. The black hole also began to shake violently in the face of this head-on spiritual attack. There was a deep moan being vaguely emitted. Clearly, the nihility devouring flame was unable to endure such an attack. Attack together! Xiao Yan cried in a deep voice. He frowned after seeing that the yellow spring divine anger was unable to destroy the black hole despite having some effect on it. With Gu Yuan being held back, the entire Alliance army did not object to some of Xiao Yang's orders. Even Lei Ying and the others had quietly nodded after sensing just how frightening Xiao Yang's spiritual strength was. Looking from just the point of fighting strength, Xiao Yan was already comparable with them. Hence, a large group of experts quickly rose into the sky after hearing Xiao Yan's cry. Various different Do skills were used at this moment. After which, the entire place shook under the vast and mighty attack. The densely packed attacks caused even someone with the strength of the nihility devouring flame to feel his skin turning numb. Some hurried buzzing sound was emitted from within the black hole in the face of such a terrifying lineup. Soon after, one could see an endless number of black light erupting from it. Finally, a black ray of light that covered the sky collided violently with the attack of the Alliance army. Immediately, an indescribable frightening energy spread wildly across the sky. The entire mountain range was cut into two by the waves. 100,000 feet large deep gully stretched from the mountain range into the horizon. Hold them back. We must not allow them to leave with the ancient jade. Xiao Yan lifted his head. His eyes shot towards the brilliant fireworks in the sky as he cried out loud. 9 lightning calamity palm. Burning flame blazing sky. Yellow spring divine anger. The entire Alliance army's truly strong individuals had unleashed their strongest attacks at this moment. Immediately, the appearance of the sky was altered. Those observers in the distance felt their hearts trembled from fear. Some of the weaker individuals directly fell onto the ground. This was the first time that they had witnessed an attack of such strength. Bastard! Faced with such a terrifying attack, an irritated curse was also emitted from the nihility devouring flame within the black hole. He was unable to withstand such a strike. The frightening attack had arrived almost instantly. However, the attacks were about to strike onto the black hole when a tall figure suddenly appeared in a flash. His expression was dark and solemn while his hand suddenly tore at the space in front of him. 100,000 feet large spatial crack erupted and swallowed all the powerful attacks from Xiao Yan's group. Han Qiandi. Xiao Yan's expression sunk after he saw the figure which had intervened. The space beside Xiao Yan fluctuated after Han Qiandi appeared. Ji Yuan surfaced from it. At this moment, the latter's long hair was in a mess. An aura, which caused even Xiao Yan to be terrified, quietly spread, causing the surrounding space to continue breaking and mending. What a great Xiao Yan! Han Qiandi's originally calm face was covered with a dark and cold murderous intent at this moment. He naturally understood that Xiao Yan's act of stealing the deathly silence gate had completely spoilt the Han clan's plans of severely damaging the Alliance army in this place. Xiao Yan's eyes were also dark and solemn as he stared at Han Qiandi. He did not hide the murderous desire in his eyes. He also wanted to kill Han Qiandi. Ji Yuan, consider yourselves lucky this time around. However, I have already gathered all the ancient jades. Once I advance to the Do Di class, your 3 clans and the Sky Mansion Alliance will be completely eliminated from the Do Chi continent. Han Qiandi looked at Xiao Yan before his eyes turned towards Ji Yuan. A dense cold smile was slowly lifted on his face. His body was slowly pulled back. Finally, he stepped into the black hole. The black hole shook and swiftly vanished. After which, the black flame that covered the place quickly paled. Ji Yuan, just you wait. The next time we meet, all of you will tremble and bow under my feet. Ha ha! The black hole disappeared. However, Han Qiandi's dark and cold laughter continued to reverberate across the sky for a long time. Xiao Yan looked at the spot where the black hole had disappeared. His expression was cold as he involuntarily clenched his hands tightly. It was unexpected that the combined effort of the 3 clans and the Sky Mansion Alliance was unable to hold the Han clan back. The latter was really too strong. How hateful, they had still managed to escape. Lei Ying and the others clenched their teeth with great dissatisfaction as they looked at the place where the black hole had disappeared. It was unexpected that even the 3 great clans and the Sky Mansion Alliance were actually unable to retain the Han clan. The strength that the Han clan had displayed had far exceeded what we knew about them in the past. Yang Jin's expression was grave. From a certain point of view, the current Han clan is no longer something that any single faction could fight against alone. Even the Ji clan was unable to do so. It was precisely because of this that the danger he felt in his heart had increased. If the 3 clans had not cooperated, it was likely that they would be finished off by the Han clan one at a time. Their fate would likely be no different for the Yao, Ling, and Shi clan. The Han clan has hidden too deeply during these years. Ji Yuan, whose hair was in a mess, had a face that was also unusually grave. They always thought that even if the Ji clan was unable to defeat the Han clan with its strength, the Ji clan should at least be equivalent to the Han clan in strength. However, the cruel reality today had told them that the Ji clan was really no match for the Han clan. Han Qiandi is right. When the Xiao clan was defeated back then, there was no faction on this continent who could fight with them. Unfortunately, this truth was something that we are only aware of at today. Ji Yuan sighed. He also felt some regret in his heart. If the Xiao clan was still present, the Han clan would likely not dare to start this war regardless of how bold it was. Lei Ying and the others laughed bitterly after hearing these words. It was a little too late to speak about this now. What should we do now? Xiao Yan was momentarily quiet before he replied. Everyone's eyes were thrown towards Ji Yuan after they heard this. The latter mused for a moment upon seeing this. Finally, he said, the Han clan has already obtained all of the Chu-Shi ancient god jade. After they recuperate, it is likely that they are going to put the ancient jades together and learn of the location of the Chu-Shi ancient god mansion. The only thing that we can do now is to carefully observe the Han clan. If any of their experts moved, we will quietly follow them until the location of the Chu-Shi ancient god mansion. If it's spying on them, I'm afraid that the Han clan would slip away and escape from us. By the time we discover it, it is likely that they have already entered the ancient god mansion. Lei Ying frowned and said. This was something that the Hun clan specializes in. They had not sensed anything wrong when the Hun clan had quietly destroyed the Ling, Shi, and Yao clans. This time around, I will personally observe them. Xiao Yan spoke in a deep voice. He understood the importance of this matter. If the Hun clan managed to successfully open the mansion and obtain the secret to advance into the Do D class, it was likely that they would not have the opportunity to turn things around. In the eyes of a genuine Do D, the so-called Alliance army would appear extremely insignificant. Everyone finally nodded after hearing these words. The two strongest in Divi. There would definitely be a big war once they reached the location of the Chu Shi ancient god mansion. This time around, even if we fight until many die, we must not allow the Hun clan to do what they please. Xiao Yan's expression was solemn as he spoke. Everyone nodded in unison. They understood that if they were to fail in this battle at the mansion, their fate would be the same as the other three clans. In order to retain their clan's bloodline, they must fight until death regardless of the great price they had to pay. The victor survives while the defeated dies. The army has remained at the Sky Mansion Alliance during this period of time and strictly observed the action of the Hun clan. Additionally, I feel that we should take the opportunity of this period of time to destroy the locations of all the Hall of Soul, which acts as the claws of the Hun clan, on the Central Plains. Xiao Yan opened his mouth and said after making a decision. The Hall of Soul, huh? It is perhaps time to completely destroy this tumor. Lei Ying and the others mused for a moment upon hearing this. A fierce glint flashed over their eyes. They were well aware of the actions of the Hall of Soul during these years. This faction had been collecting souls from all over the place. From the looks of it now, it seemed that the revival of the older generations of the Han clan's experts like Han Yuantian, who should have died a long time ago, had some relation with this. In that case, let's get this Alliance army to camp at the Sky Mansion Alliance. That place stands on the Central Plains and we will be able to monitor every action of the Hun clan. Xiao Yan did not object. Remaining in the Central Plains would make it convenient to monitor the Hun clan. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. After which, he turned his head towards Yao Lao and said, "Teacher, I'll leave the matter of the army to you." Ha ha, relax. The Alliance might be lacking in many ways, but we have a lot of room. It should not be a problem for these people to stay there. Yao Lao fondled his beard and laughed. Additionally, the position of Chief of the Sky Mansion Alliance had been shifted to you before the army had set off. You are most suitable than me to take this position now. Xiao Yan was startled. He looked at the smile on Yao Lao's face and nodded helplessly. Currently, the alliance was becoming stronger. It did require a powerful alliance chief. Yao Lao might have the necessary reputation, but he was a little lacking in terms of strength. Allowing Xiao Yan to take the position would likely further stabilize the alliance. Xiao Yan once again left some instructions to Yao Lao and the rest before he suddenly turned his head to look at Kailin and Zun. He softly said, "The both of you should follow me." Xiao Yan rushed towards a distant mountain after his words sounded. Kailin and Zun also understood him after seeing this. Their faces became slightly flush. They clenched their hands tightly. Their hearts, which showed no fear in the face of a large army, actually began to feel slightly anxious. Both ladies quickly glanced at each other as though they were cheering each other on. After which, they clenched their silver teeth gently and followed. Xiao Yan's figure landed on a mountain in the distance. The few experts from the alliance on the mountain quickly stood up after they saw his arrival. They bowed and welcomed him. Respect and fear filled their faces. "Alliance Chief, I have troubled everyone." Xiao Yan waved his hand and quickly walked towards Xiao Zhong, who was guarded by everyone. He bowed respectfully and softly asked, "Father, are you all right?" Xiao Zhong looked at this somewhat skinny young man in front of him, whose hands seemed to possess the strength to fight the heavens. His eyes once again became moist. Pride and relief filled his heart. Although he was a great distance away earlier, he had also clearly seen the earth-shaking like big battle earlier. The terrifying strength which Xiao Yan had displayed during the big battle had caused him to be excited and pleased. During these years he had spent in the Hun clan, he clearly understood just how frightening the Hun clan was. Yet, even such a terrifying opponent seemed to have suffered a serious damage in the hands of this youngest son of his. Yang, you have grown. Xiao Shan's rough large hand patted Xiao Yang's shoulder. Back in the distant past, when everyone had thought that this former genius of the Xiao clan would become completely useless, only he stubbornly believed that the youth would one day soar to the skies. Decades later, the useless youth in the Wu-Tang city back then had already stood at the peak of this continent and overlooked everything on it. Xiao Yang involuntarily felt a heartache as he looked at Xiao Shan's much older face. He forcefully smiled and slowly moved his body aside. Two beautiful figures, which caused everything in the world to pale in comparison, were revealed behind him. Uncle Xiao. Do you still remember Zana? Zana's face was slightly flushed as she bowed gracefully and whispered. Zana? Xiao Shan was startled. He looked at this beautiful fairy-like lady in front of him. Finally, he recalled the most brilliant and mysterious young lady of the Xiao clan back then. A joy immediately surged on his face. This was the most satisfactory daughter-in-law in his opinion about back then. However, the latter's status caused him to understand that it was merely wishful thinking on his part. He had even knocked Xiao Yang's head frequently because of this, telling him not to get too deep with Zana. Father, Zana is currently a member of our Xiao clan. Xiao Yan approached Xiao Shan and laughingly said, Good fellow. You have really not disappointed your father. Xiao Shan's elderly face revealed a great joy after hearing this. His palm slapped onto Xiao Yang's back. Zana's face had turned red with embarrassment after hearing the conversation of the two. His face was brilliant and alluring. Who is this? Xiao Shan was happy for a moment before his eyes suddenly looked at Kailin at the side. The latter was quietly standing in one corner with a bewitching and tempting appearance. However, her originally cold pretty face had become a lot quieter and gentler. It caused Xiao Yang to be a little stunned. Cough, this is also your daughter-in-law, Kailin. Xiao Yang's expression was a little unnatural. He coughed dryly and spoke in a low voice. Xiao Shan's face twitched slightly. He covertly gave Xiao Yan a thumbs up. Father, you should also have heard of Kailin. She has another name called Queen Medusa, Xiao Yan laughed. Queen Medusa. Xiao Shan's mind trembled slightly upon hearing this name which he had once known very well. Even though he had currently seen many experts, his heart still had a lingering horror towards this Queen Medusa, whose fierce reputation was well known throughout the entire Jiomar Empire back then. After all, this was a name that no one had dared to even mention at the Jiomar Empire back then. However, he did not expect that this Queen Medusa, who had frightened the entire Jiomar Empire and a couple neighboring empires, would actually also become his daughter-in-law. Uncle Xiao, that is all in the past. You can call me Kailin. Kailin smiled sweetly. She immediately glared at Xiao Yang icily and quietly warned him not to talk about the matters in the past. Xiao Yang involuntarily smiled in the face of Cai Lin's warning. After which, he looked at Xiao Shan and smilingly said, Father, let's return to the Sky Mansion Alliance first. Your granddaughter is also waiting for you there. At that time, I will also call big brother and second brother over. Our family will be able to reunite again. Granddaughter. Ji Zhon widened his mouth. Various emotions immediately appeared in his heart. This little fellow, was he not a little too efficient? After the Alliance army withdrew back to the Sky Mansion Alliance, the entire Central Plains had undoubtedly turned into an uproar. The three great ancient clans and the overlord of the Central Plains, the Sky Mansion Alliance. This alliance army was so powerful that one could not describe it with words. Any faction would be turned into dust under the might of this army. This shock, which caused everyone to panic, did not last for long before the news of the all-out war between the Alliance army and the Han clan was spread. After all, the big battle between the Alliance army and the Han clan at the Burial Mountain Range was really far too earth-shaking. It was impossible for that kind of big war not to attract attention. Hence, the moment the big battle ended and the Alliance army withdrew, news of the battle began to spread to every corner of the Central Plains. Some of the factions, which had some conflict with the Sky Mansion Alliance, quietly sighed in relief after hearing that the target of the Alliance army was the Hun clan. Soon after, however, they could sense the most terrifying storm in 1,000 years would soon sweep over the Central Plains with their sharp senses. This storm would be incomparable intense. It would be many times worse than any other war in the past. Many factions began to feel uneasy in the face of this imminent storm. A fight between the frightening existences would likely cause an extremely horrible destruction over the Central Plains. This was clearly a danger that could not be underestimated for the factions that were living on the Central Plains. Even if they were to be briefly touched by a war of this level, it was likely that their entire faction would be destroyed. Hence, those factions, which were located close to the Sky Mansion Alliance, had all hurriedly left their lands after the Alliance army had set up camp at the Sky Mansion Alliance. They were afraid that they would suffer from some unintentional attacks when the war began, which would result in a miserable fate. Xiao Yan and the others ignored this commotion on the Central Plains. At the moment, the Hun clan might have committed various atrocities on the Central Plains, but it was obvious that those factions would not start a war with the Hun clan just because of this. Everyone wished to remain neutral in the face of this big war. Hence, Xiao Yan's group did not plan to pull these factions onto the same boat as them. The large army returned to the Star Realm and began to be busy once again. However, it was fortunate that there was Yao Lao and other people in charge of these. Hence, there was no need for Xiao Yan to have a headache over these matters. After all, he was really not very good when it came to management. Xiao Yan sighed in relief after returning to the Star Realm. Even he had felt a little tired after he finally being able to relax from such an intense battle. Therefore, while Yao Lao and the others were busy with settling the Alliance army down, he had led Xiao Zhan, Zun and Kailin back to the mountain which belonged to him. Xiao Xiao quickly appeared in front of Xiao Yang's group after hearing about news of Xiao Yang's return at the mountain. After which, she swiftly pounced into Xiao Yang's embrace and refused to come down. "Come, Xiao Xiao, greet your grandfather." The current Xiao Xiao had begun to appear a little juicy. Adding the natural bewitching look she had inherited from her mother, she was already a beauty despite being young. One could imagine that she would become another great beauty, who could bring disaster to countries like her mother, when she grew up. Xiao Xiao's large black eyes blinked after hearing Xiao Yang's words. She looked at Xiao Zhan beside Xiao Yang. Although this old man appeared to be a stranger, she still obediently called out, "Grandpa." Good granddaughter." Xiao Zhan's eyes paused on Xiao Xiao the moment the latter appeared. His elderly face had actually reddened slightly from his excitement. That wrinkled-filled old face broke into a bright smile after hearing Xiao Xiao obediently greeted him. Even his eyes had become narrow as he laughingly replied in a hurried fashion. Xiao Yan helplessly smiled after seeing that Xiao Zhan's face was even more excited than when they had met earlier. Old people seemed to be especially fond of little children. After all, from the way they saw it, the continuation of their bloodline was the most important thing in a clan. "Come, Grandpa will give you a hug." Xiao Zhan smilingly extended his hand and forcefully hugged Xiao Xiao from Xiao Yang's embrace. His beard-covered old face continued to touch Xiao Xiao's small face, causing the latter to reveal a bitter expression, beard, pain. "Ha ha," Xiao Zhan involuntarily burst out in laughter upon seeing this. Tears even began to fall due to his laughter. During the decades which he had been imprisoned by the Hun clan, he had basically fallen into a despair. After witnessing the strength of the Hun clan, it was extremely difficult for him to imagine escaping from their hands. At times, he even hoped that Xiao Yang would not go and rescue him. This was because it was far too dangerous doing so. However, when reality was placed in front of him, Xiao Zhan became aware that even though he had always had a great confidence in Xiao Yan, he had still underestimated the ability of this son of his. This kind of family joy really the best thing in the world for Xiao Zhan, who had once ended up in despair. Xiao Yan clenched his fist tightly after seeing Xiao Zhan's appearance. Kailin and Zun by the side involuntarily had reddened eyes. "Father, let us go and rest first. Coincidentally, I am free during this period of time. I will help you nurse your health," Xiao Yang smiled. After which, he turned towards Kailin and said, "Send someone back to the Jiomar Empire and bring my brothers over. Tell them, father is waiting for them. Kalin nodded gently before turning around and leave. Xiao Yan gently exhaled as he looked at Kalin's beautiful figure becoming distant. He muttered to himself in his heart, "Big brother, second brother, I have finally did what I have promised the both of you." The days after the big battle was unusually peaceful. The Alliance army that camped at the Sky Mansion Alliance did not move frequently. However, this atmosphere was an imminent storm had not weakened as a result. Instead, it became even denser. Everyone was aware that this would be the decisive battle between two extraordinary parties. The earth-shaking big battle in the Burial Mountain Range had resulted in both parties suffering some losses. Hence, they were a little quiet during this period of time. Both parties were using this limited time to quickly recover their energy and prepare for an all-out strike. While the army was recuperating, the upper echelons of the Alliance army did not have the time to do so. Xiao Yan had found a place to undertake a retreat the moment the army had arrived at the Falling Star Pavilion. Everyone knew that he was personally monitoring the Han clan. With his monitoring the other party, any activity that occurred at the Han realm would be immediately discovered by him. However, such an activity did not appear during this period of time. It was as though the Han clan had become completely quiet after obtaining the ancient jade. Another couple of days passed in the blink of an eye as this deadlock continued. After the Alliance army had obtained some rest, they finally began their next course of action. This time around, their target was the Han clan. Strong individuals from all over the place were orderly divided into many groups that flew out from the Star Realm. After which, they began a carpet-like search from the Sky Mansion Alliance in an attempt to look for the branch hall of the Hall of Soul. In the face of this extremely detailed search, the branch halls of the Hall of Soul were all being exposed one after another. However, after the Alliance army charged into these branch hall, they discovered that it was completely empty inside. Only an extremely few branch halls still had some experts from the Hall of Soul guarding it. However, this kind of protection was unable to pose any obstruction towards the Alliance army. Under this extremely forceful search by the Alliance army, all the branch halls of the Hall of Soul on the Central Plains had been turned into wasteland. Even the most important Sky and Earth halls had been destroyed by the powerful Alliance army. From this moment forth, the Hall of Soul, which was once renowned throughout the Central Plains, was easily eliminated from it. The outsides could only be shocked in the face of the Hall of Soul being easily destroyed. The previous overlord of the Central Plains actually appeared so weak in the face of the Alliance oppression. However, Xiao Yan and the others had also frowned while the public was shocked. From the looks of it, it was obvious that the Han clan had already predicted this and have already withdrew the Hall of Soul from those places. Most importantly, the spiritual essence stored in those branch halls had also been shifted away by the Hall of Soul. The action taken by the Han clan could be considered decisive. They knew that it was basically impossible to protect the Hall of Soul in the face of the Alliance army. In that case, they might as well hand it over to the Alliance. In any case, the Hall of Soul could be said to have achieved its purpose. It did not matter even if it was destroyed. Once their plans succeed, they would be able to rapidly build a couple of Hall of Souls. At that time, the entire continent would be under their control. Following the destruction of the Hall of Soul, the Alliance army could only withdraw once again. After which, they were placed outside of the Han realm in front of many pairs of eyes in preparation of any activities that could potentially appear. During this period of time, Xiao Ding and Xiao Li had also traveled through the wormhole that already been set up. They directly arrived at the Star Realm from the northwestern part of the continent. There was naturally a moving scene when father and son reunite. That scene caused the eyes of many to redden and their hearts to ache. Who could have expected that the original ordinary but lucky Xiao clan would ended up being separated due to the appearance of the Han clan from nowhere? After his two brothers' arrival, Xiao Yan had also enjoyed a period of joy from the reunion, which he had not felt for a long time. Additionally, he had also inquired about the matters of the Yang Alliance. This alliance that he had established back then was currently the undeniable strongest faction on the current northwestern part of the continent. However, Xiao Yang did not have any plans to use the strength of the Yang Alliance. From the perspective of the Central Plains, it could only be considered a relatively strong faction. Hence, it was pointless to rope it into the Alliance army. After enjoying a period of family time, Xiao Yan had once again refocused his mind. The matter of the Hall of Soul having gathered all the Tushi ancient god Jade had been weighing on him. Even though he had currently stepped into the DI state soul, he was still far lacking when compared to a 9-star Dosheng like the Nihility Devouring Flame. Hence, before the Hun clan could find the Tushi ancient god cave, he must increase his strength as quickly as possible. In this way, it would allow him to be able to have some additionally trump cards when facing an opponent like the Nihility Devouring Flame. However, after reaching his level, attempting to raise his strength within a short period of time was clearly an extremely difficult task. Hence, Xiao Yan had finally chose to target the 9 mysterious golden lightning that was sealed within Little Yi's body after musing for a long time. After his soul had stepped into the D state, he already possessed the ability to refine this strength which he was once helpless against. This video will end here.